Hi, my name is Ted Ganscher from G.A, and today we are going to learn how to discover, align around, and articulate your most powerful product and company messaging. So, discovering your messaging, aligning your team around it, aligning your sales and marketing organization around it, and articulating that out consistently comes from a process that starts with the right questions. So, we've been doing this for 20 plus years. We have a three-part process. The first part is about information gathering and challenging a lot of theories, approaches, and assumptions. The middle part is around alignment, and the third part is around expression. Again, this project takes about 2 to 3 months, and you can do this internally. You can do it with the assistance of a firm like us. And what you'll come to is a defensible, consistent expression that positions you in the most powerful way and repositions your competition to their weaknesses. So we've done this for a lot of companies. There's a lot more behind this. But like I say, we've been at this for over 2 decades. I talked about the middle of that process where we actually have people in a room. So when we do the alignment part, we're still gathering input, but we're trying to help people understand that we have to live at 100,000 feet when we're going through this exercise. This is not a to-do list. This is not tactical. We're not writing headlines. We're not picking color palettes. We are figuring out why we exist, for whom, and why we're better than all those competitors out there that are trying to crush us. So in the room, I give this preamble, and the first part of it is aligning around brand, category, and position. We all know, we have in our own minds definitions of those terms. They tend to be slightly different. So to get the room up to that 100,000 foot level and thinking at the biggest possible terms, and also to align everybody as to what these terms mean and how these concepts interrelate, we go through very quickly definitions of them. So brand, we define as the sum total of everything you think and feel about an entity. And this could be anything from Oprah Winfrey to the university, to Harvard University, or it could be a commercial enterprise. So in the room, I'll ask, give me a few words, 2 or 3, that describe each one of these organizations. Typically, those words will be pretty consistent across the room. That's the result of good brand stewardship. That's finding a sweet spot in the marketplace, staking out your claim, executing well, and sticking with that claim, even at those times when it seems like you should be changing it. We'll talk more about that. This works in B2B too. A great deal of my work has been in B2B, and B2B companies create great brands all the time. In verticals, you'll find tons of great branding and positioning among small companies that are very niche focused but have built a very loyal following over a very long period of time using the exact same practices that are contained in this deck. So I'll ask people, all right, so let's do some compare and contrast. It's non-judgmental, it's observational. Give me a few words to describe the 2 companies on the left. And it'll be a smattering of stuff. Give me some words to describe the company on the right. And basically people break into a round of applause. That's all around good brand stewardship. So when I do these exercises, I say, A, I'm doing consumer brands because we experience 20,000 of those a day. And B, we can all talk about them in the same way. When we talk about B2B brands, some of them are very niche. We may not have a shared understanding of even what they do. This allows us all to have kind of be in the same room talking about something that we're all familiar with. So Apple, everybody gets excited about Apple. And then I say, let's read Apple's inaugural copy. So I give them some time to do that. I'll do that for you now, and I'll meet you at the end. So what we notice about this copy is there's no mention of technology, there's no mention of computers, there's no mention of features or really what you can do with whatever it is this company that's shaped like a piece of fruit with a bite out of it does. So a great concept to keep in mind in B2B is the concept of tribe building. And so here what they're doing is they're saying if you're attracted, if this is magnetic to you, this appeal that you feel like you see things differently, you want to express yourself differently, that means you're coming into our tribe. That means you're coming in our circle. There'll be people outside that circle, and we know where they'll go. But you're in our tribe. And everything we do is built around this. It's not built around features. It's not built around price. It's built around the expression of this set of characteristics that unifies us. Similarly, Nike. You may say, well, these are big companies with amazing resources, and they've been at it a long time. And I'd say, yeah, they are big companies. The fact they've been at it a long time is one of the reasons they're successful with it, because they don't change their brand every 2 years. Like a great deal of companies, people like me, who've been in this for a couple decades, have experienced. They stick with this stuff. They do resource it like crazy, and you won't have the budgets of these companies likely, but you don't need them. You need to think like them. So Nike decided, okay, we're not going to talk about product either. We're showing off all these athletes. People feel good or bad about that, right? What they did is they said, find your own greatness. Be the best you can be. It's not about the shoes. It's not about the gear. It's about just do it. Just go get out there and find your own greatness. It transcends features. It transcends the materials the shoes are made out of and the price that they cost. We'll pay up for this stuff. It's the companies that don't have a position like this that are going to be hanging on the rack, challenging on price because Nike's more expensive and they're kind of a knockoff. So again, it's these building of tribes, these building of big ideas. And don't shy away from that regardless what your business is. Think at 100,000 feet, and if we need to come back down to 25,000, it's always there. So we talked about brand, now we'll talk about category. A category is just a set of solutions to a problem. And so we all get hungry, so I picked food. So if I say I'm hungry, I suddenly find myself in a world of multi-billion-dollar subcategories to choose from. All of these have lots of competitors, lots of positionings, lots of low choice options, lots of premier options. It's all over the map. I picked, for this example, ice cream because everybody loves ice cream. So the positioning grid really looks like this. It's a couple of axes, couple of attributes. Getting to the right ones is incredibly hard. As with most anything, making it small is much harder than making it long. One way we talk about ourselves, our job is to put a period at the end of your very short sentence. Because people tend to say and a lot because they're nervous that if they don't get to that next thing, they won't close the sale. It's easier and more efficient to test what the right things are up front. Just say those and build a position around that. So attribute A, attribute B, you want to be high and to the right, put your competition low and to the left. So I picked Ben and Jerry's. Now because of who their founders are, they were able to kind of extrapolate this quirky flavor, cause-focused brand and positioning that has really worked for them. They figured out there's a big enough market out there of people for whom that is attractive and who will stick with it. And they repositioned their competition low and to the left. Now Breyers, Haagen-Dazs, Edy's, they don't care that they're down there. That's immaterial to them, really. They've got their own positioning where Ben and Jerry's is low and to the left. But for Ben and Jerry's, it's critical that all of those brands are low and to the left, and Ben and Jerry's is high and to the right. And we'll explain why as we move forward. Again, it's a category name and attributes, and it works in B2B, it works in B2C, it works in any category. So when I say, for instance, cars, and that's the category, and I say, let's talk about prestige and engineering. Give me some names. I'm going to get the same ones every time. And who gets repositioned? Toyota, Subaru, Honda, and a bunch of others. And again, they don't care. They're not playing up and high and to the right. BMW, Mercedes, Audi, a few others have figured out there's a big enough market out there that we're going to position against each other up in that space, right? The other ones are down low and to the left. But prestige and engineering, they own it. Now in new categories, it's even more interesting. And so I'd been taught my entire life, you don't let strangers in your house. And then Airbnb told me, well, hotels are inauthentic and they're not an immersive experience. They're cookie cutter, the same as everywhere. And then I'm like, oh, people can come in my house and I'll pay to go in theirs. And so now there's a short-term lodging thing that's not hotels where the positioning grid just totally changed. The standardized experience of going to a Hyatt is no longer something we want. So that entire positioning was flipped on its head, which is very interesting. And the same thing happened with cars. I've lived in cities my entire life. I always thought taxis were perfectly fine. And then I learned, oh, I'll get in a car with a stranger. I'll pay for the privilege of doing that because it comes to me and the entire process is really automated, right? For me, I also get the benefit, I think, of it is authentic. You get to talk to somebody. But the positioning here is it comes to you. It's automated. The cabs are struggling now to move up with apps like Curb and so forth. To get back up high and to the right to own this thing again, you can make your own theories around what the chances are of them actually pulling that off. Okay, 20 plus years of doing this, and this is one of the biggest risks anybody runs, is positioning around features. So defensibility is what we're going for here. Now, when we look at some of these brands, they have more abstract positionings that are around feelings and concepts and aspirations, right? When you get into technology, it tends to be that people who've invented something have a very vested interest in all that effort they put into it. They think it's very clever. They think it's something that really should be out in the world and talked about. So they resource it, and you get, us, we're up there because we got this feature A, and suddenly, whoops, 6 months later, so does the competition because it's not defensible. And so I worked a lot in mobile phone space, and this rolled on for a decade, right? Until somebody came along and figured out, you can actually build a brand around this and not talk so much about features. So if you think about owning an attribute, let's just take one. So let's take Ford trucks and let's take Subarus. Very different. They don't care. They are repositioned by each other, but not in any way that's meaningful to either of them. So Ford took durability. Subaru took love, which I think is a real stretch, and I think is really interesting. There's another example of love coming up in a minute here. And then you start doing executions on this. So durability, it's very simple. It's very basic. It's very small, but it's a very big concept. It becomes Ford tough. Love becomes love. It's what makes a Subaru a Subaru. It literally is the core of what makes that brand that brand. They're just taking their positioning and just sticking it in your face and telling you that's who we are. When they express it, it looks like this. Introducing the future of tough, right? This has military grade aluminum alloy in the body. It is raining. It is flooding. They're going uphill. So everything about this is an execution of tough. And it's not tough and something else, you'll notice. It's durability. That's what this is. The military grade, the aluminum alloy, high strength. So they're expressing a thing, not 20 things. Similarly, Subaru is expressing a very different thing. They're expressing love with somebody writing a love letter to Subaru as they're riding off with the Just Married stuff on their car. And they're not saying love and something else. It's not saying love plus you get better mileage or it's cheaper. It's just love. That's it. I'll let you read this and I'll meet you at the bottom. So you'll hear this from investors everywhere and management and people in product and everywhere. It's really about defensibility. And again, when I talked about the features kind of, unless you have IP around them, features personify that lack of defensibility that pretty much guarantees you that in X number of months you're going to be doing this whole thing over again and wish you had those resources back that you expended pushing that feature because now everybody's got it. And so you want to think when you're at this 100,000 foot level, which is where we want to take you and keep you for at least a little while, you want to think about, is this defensible? Is somebody else going to be able to do what we're doing? And can we do something that's not necessarily related directly to the functionality of the product or the output of the product, which is a category thing and everybody's got it and it's a commodity? Can we do something that's related to it, but maybe that hits more in the head and the heart, right? So again, we talked about features, getting killed in those. I want to reiterate that. It's the thing we've seen the most of. So there's another one I wanted to surface. I did work for a men's cosmetics company not long ago, and I spent a lot of time looking at men's cosmetics, of course, and talking to a lot of people in it, but I also want to go and see how did this evolve in women's cosmetics? How many soaps must there be? How do you even sell a soap these days? Is it like natural ingredients? What is it? So I went out and I found Dove, and I think most people have been exposed to this campaign around women's self-esteem and the kind of the authentic woman. And so what Dove did is they said, yeah, we make soap, but what we really do is we build a tribe of women, of real women. And we talk about the things that are important to them. And we reposition all this competition low and to the left. So we'll look at a couple of executions that they did. But Dove said, women are beautiful no matter who they are, and they have to feel in their hearts that self-esteem, right? Now, what happens when you do something like that? I'm not saying all of whatever business you're in, I know you're not going to go be a Dove and do their execution, but whatever business you're in, do you have a higher purpose that propels your passion, and can you convey that to your market? Is there something you're doing, whatever business you're in, whatever market you serve, is there something that makes people believe you will try harder than the competition to out-invent them to outserve the customer. What's in your heart that's driving you to do this? This what we're looking at here is the antithesis of feature-based marketing, right? There's something big going on and something instead of something small going on. It transcends the product into a mission. So when people see the brand, they feel something suddenly, and feeling something is really important for lifetime value. There's also a reason to talk about the brand. So if we go out and we market on features and our competitors market on features, if someone comes along and figures out a big issue that our market cares about and attaches themselves to it, and suddenly at conferences and over dinners and stuff they're talking about it, we're in trouble. And we should have done that first. Lastly, and it's related to that first purpose, we're likely to be continually innovating because we're driven by something other than money, right? The opposite of this is just competing on price and telling people buy us because we're cheaper. So this was the Dove Self-Esteem Project. They are planning on having helped 250 million young women by 2030 improve their self-esteem. So again, this is a soap company, right? They are able to go out and discover through their research that only 4% of women globally would describe themselves as beautiful. That's a statistic that got a lot of traction. It's an important thing we all should be talking about. We all have been talking about, and they're helping seed those conversations, right? It's important stuff. It gets at our hearts. So it also allows them to do interesting executions and interesting ways for people to participate in the effort of righting this wrong, right? So they partnered with Getty Images to launch something called Show Us, which was the largest collection of women and non-binary individuals. So it's just shattering these beauty stereotypes, right? Again, it's building a tribe. And this is just, I think, for me, a beautiful execution of that. Lots of heart in this one. Of course, it generated the results. Sales for Dove jumped from 2.5 to 4 billion in the campaign's first 10 years, and it became their biggest and best-selling product. So, again, when we look at the defensibility of these positions, the user is hero. Nike will forever be up there unless, and it hasn't happened yet, somebody gets in charge there and says, we've been at this long enough, we need a new brand, we need a new position. Anybody who's been in my position as long as I have has lived through a whole bunch of those. And Nike, I think, probably has this pretty much nailed up in their own Fort Knox. But once you get that high and to the right going in something like user as hero, this tribal, this thing where I have a connection to it, and again, think in your own business. What does that mean? You're not doing shoes, but you're doing something that's important. It's very hard for the competitors to move themselves up. I did love for Subaru, and I'll do it for Southwest because in their vision statement, in their most corporate kind of statement, loved is the very first thing. It's the very first thing they want to achieve. And by doing that, they become very profitable. So here we have love and efficiency leading to profitability. So their positioning grid is love and efficiency. They're high and to the right on those two. I just compare that as an observational, non-judgmental kind of thing with Delta Airlines, right? Southwest works hard on this, and they're consistent about it. If you're a product company like Apple, and again, I know a lot of people are kind of roll their eyes and say, we'll never be Apple. My response is, you don't have to be. You just have to think a little bit like them. You will draw power downward from the company brand across the entire portfolio of products. So when Apple comes out with a product, the buying decision is nearly made, right? People are rushing out to get whatever it is they build. The phone launch, some of us who have been around longer remember that being kind of a revolutionary example of this. But laptops, AirPods, all of the other products, there are lines around the block because we've already completed that sales argument, that consideration process in our head. Am I really thinking about other vendors for a tablet? What does the consideration matrix look like in my head? If Apple was never Apple, it may well be price, it may well be performance. Really, the consideration matrix in a lot of people's heads is it Apple? And that just changes the game from a positioning standpoint. Smaller companies will say, okay, I don't get it. They have whole divisions that do this stuff. I have to make money. How do I make money from these concepts? So the way I think about it is positioning is almost immediately why people buy, and brand is why they never leave. So when you do a positioning exercise correctly, you really do immediately increase your selling power. If you can simplify your message down to basically an elevator pitch to your market and stop saying and put a period on it and do it consistently enough that you can test the theory around it, you are increasing your selling power because you're giving them the line of sight to why it's important to them. It's simple, it's easy to consider against the competitive set, and if you do it right, the competitive set suffers. Once they buy and you continue to be a powerful communicator with them about this simple positioning, but a simple and potent positioning, you're starting to deepen that moat. You're starting to increase that lifetime value of that customer. Brand switching happens less often. They're not going to price like we talked about with Apple and a lot of other products like that. People pay up for expensive products if the brand is right, if the positioning is right. Most importantly, if you're watching this video, you may go and start working on some headlines you have to get done, or maybe you're making some decisions that could be made more high return if you were to go through a process like the one I'm describing before you did them. Now, everybody has to-do lists, totally forgivable. We all are in that world. But when you work on headlines and all of this stuff, and when you work on sales decks, and when you work on appeals, in absence of a thoughtful, considered, informed process on the front end, the likelihood you're just going to luck into it is very low. And that's where people bend like willows in the wind. They try something, doesn't work, a week later they change it, somebody changes it on a plane. I heard a customer said this, okay, let's try that. That's the state of the majority of the world. And if you choose just not to do anything, then the market does it for you. I used this example before, right? Delta, how would you describe the brand position? If you didn't say anything when I asked, that is a positioning. They're an airline. That's just the absence of a positioning, and it's not very good. This is related to the point before about, I just don't have time. Well, if you do the positioning well and you get just a little luck on execution, you can come to taglines very quickly. User as the hero, the just do it thing is born of that, right? Down this whole list of very well-known taglines, can you hear me now? Good. It's just around network quality. Dollar Shave Club, time and money, 2 attributes, right? I don't want to go to the store to get it, and I don't want to pay a lot. Shave time, shave money. And then BMW, prestige engineering. Oh, the ultimate prestigious driving machine, engineering. 4 words instead of 2, conveying the same thing. So again, if I walk on the lot positioning, around engineering prestige, those are 2 important things to me as a buyer. This guy on the lot knows that, and he's like, oh, well, the most prestigious car we have that's engineered in Germany and is really incredible is indeed the BMW, rather. That might be enough to get me. So I might buy the thing. It's what happens after that increases that moat, decreases brand switching, increases lifetime value. All of these different experiences I have with the brand are consistent, simple, and built around the same potent positioning attributes that got me to buy it in the first place. That's the relationship building. Now we're at a brand life partner, and we can brag about the sum total of everybody's thoughts, etc., about us, because we did the work in the beginning, we persisted through the execution, and we stayed with those people and made them understand who we are, and we didn't change who we were. In new categories, and I work in a lot of kind of new and immature categories, it's interesting. You have this donut where the interior, the white, are the early adopters, kind of the crossing the chasm people. That's today's market who would buy your stuff. And the rest of the market, the blue, the interior of the blue are people a little closer to early adopter, but they're looking for some reference clients. And they're looking for some proof that this is a good investment. And you're trying to sell that interior market while you're priming the exterior market for sale, and slightly different messaging. And so if you find yourself in this situation, we'd love to talk to you, because this is a really interesting one. And it changes a little bit the process. It's still a 1, 2, 3 process, but it does change some of the things we investigate, and it changes kind of the cadence of the stuff that comes out at the back end. And we could talk to you about that. So again, I hope that you enjoyed that. Again, brand, category, position, super critical. Thinking at 100,000 feet about this stuff, even if you feel silly doing it, it's going to yield great results for you. And if you would like any of our help doing this stuff, visit us at g.a.co, and my email address is ted, T-E-D, at g.a.co, and I hope I'll be hearing from you. Thanks.